Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. This is Starrapter, joined by Milton and Ben for episode number 20 of Outer Rim Transmission. How's everybody doing today, aside from sweating? Because in our neck of the woods, it is very hot around here.
Yeah. No, same here, man. Here in Pennsylvania, it's been a drought. We finally got some rain. Hopefully, we get some more tonight, but it's been crazy. Glad to have us on the podcast, Chris. Appreciate it.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
heck
it's
yeah.
it's always fun. Hot as Mustafar over here as well. Just real hot and hot. The worst thing is with it storms a little bit, so it gets humid as can be, and it's been awful lately.
I know you've been busy with a certain video game that has hit a trial.
Yeah,
What are you playing over there, man?
Yeah, lately I've been playing some Madden 22 since that came out a couple days ago. Just on a limited basis since it's a 10-hour trial until the official release date.
Yeah, that's the thing with EA. Like I believe they did that with Battlefront 2 back in the day. So it's interesting. But yeah, it's nothing like playing some good old video games on a day where it's just too hot to even go outside.
Oh yeah, it's always fun.
Facts.
Yeah, besides video games, keeping us occupied, have you guys had any cool Star Wars experiences over the last week?
Oh, yeah. I had one brief one, and I sent you guys a picture of it over the week. I stopped at a GameStop actually, just looking at some stuff, and they had an I think it was an Heir of the Jedi action figure of Luke Skywalker, pretty much around the time of Thrawn. It was really, really cool. I sent you guys a picture, and you guys were like, "Go back and buy it." So I don't know. Maybe I might go back tomorrow and buy it. It was like $25, but it was a really good figure how it looked. I thought that the way at the time it came out, I was very impressed with it. So it came in like a little collection box with the story of like the Heir to the Jedi or Empire story. So it was kind of cool. So I might have to go back and buy it this weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, that's actually part of a collection. I believe that's like celebrating the 50 years of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And yeah, those things are so cool. They even have one for one of my least favorite characters in Star Wars, which is the comic character called Jackson, which is the Green Rabbit that debuted in the Marvel comics from the 70s. And I don't know, that thing just looks like Looney Tunes to me. So I'm always like, why is he in Star Wars? He looks like he could step out of a Warner Brothers picture, but they have something for him too. But yeah, that's really cool. And just seeing how they come into comics is really neat too. Back in the day, Shadows of the Empire. I got an IG-88 action figure. It came with one of the issues of the Shadows of the Empire comics. So I'm like, they need to do more of that. Marvel and Hasbro have to team up and start doing like some of the modern characters. Like, give us another Dr. Aphra figure with like issue number 1 of her thing. Or better yet, give us some High Republic figures with issue 1 of the series or something like that. Like, come on, make it happen, somebody out there, because we want those. But yeah, I was like, yeah, you got to go back there and get that thing because that thing's awesome.
Yeah, like you said, we'll see. Maybe this weekend, maybe next week. I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, for me, it was an interesting weekend because I introduced the girlfriend to the Clone Wars. So we watched the movie. And I was very excited to actually hear her say, without me even prompting a response, "Hey, I actually like this." I'm like, I looked over, I'm like, really? I was like, most people consider this mediocre by a long shot for Star Wars. So I'm like, oh man, we have a long journey ahead of us. If you think this is good, then wait till you see some of the later seasons. Wait till you see just later animations. So that's gonna be really fun. Trying to get through that. We'll see how far we get in the next couple months. I'll try to give you guys updates on our rewatch of the Clone Wars in its entirety. I guess that's what we'll probably do. But it's always interesting, like introducing somebody to some newer part of Star Wars, because the animation, as popular as it is, not enough people watch it. It is more kind of niche, I guess, for the most part. So it is really cool because it's like there's so many storytelling elements that people are missing out on, like big things that relate to the Jedi, relate to Anakin specifically if we're talking about the Clone Wars. So it really fleshes out those characters like we know, gives meaning to the clones and why they are so important, why they're individualized. And, we'll talk a lot more about that, obviously, since the title of this episode is talking about the Bad Batch. So, we're going to get into that later on. But yeah, that was a fun experience.
Oh, I'm sure that was like, and also, that's a good point you just made. And that's a almost a PSA for all the fans out there listening is when you're introducing Star Wars, no matter what it is, whether it's the animated shows, the movies, whatever, try not to prompt it with negative. Like if it's something you don't like, basically just keep that to yourself and let them, let them form their own opinion without like basing it on, oh, my best friend or significant other doesn't like this, so I'm probably not going to like it. Let them form their opinion, because like even for me, for example, my ex-girlfriend, she actually loved The Last Jedi, and I definitely don't. So, it's all different opinions, but it's good to, allow other people that you're introducing to Star Wars, to form their own opinions versus like being influenced.
Heck yeah. And Ben, anything with you in Star Wars this week?
Oh yeah. So this has been an interesting week. As I mentioned in the opening of this show, I have a limited time trial on Madden 22 for the next few days. So I was talking to Chris and I was like, hey, can't I get Jedi Fallen Order for free on EA Play? Because I have EA Play for this month with the Madden game. And so I found that out and I downloaded Jedi Fallen Order yesterday. I mean, it took like 5 hours to download because it's like 60 gigabytes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, so I'm actually gonna start playing that tonight after this podcast and, jump into it and see what all the hype's about. And, I'm gonna try to run through that real quick and beat it, obviously, before my EA Play trial is up. And then I'm gonna try to, the next thing I'm gonna work on is try to run through Squadrons. If Squadrons has a campaign, I'm not sure.
It does.
Or not. Does it? Okay. So I'm probably gonna, I'll download Squadrons next and try to run through Squadrons as well over this month. And yeah, so I've been kind of video gaming it lately.
Oh man, that hits it right in the heart, man. Because with me and Star Wars, my connection has always been the game. So it's like, yeah, man, let's get into a discussion next week. We're gonna see where you picked up, and we're gonna nitpick or dive in deep to the first planet is Braca, which we see in Bad Batch. Then you're gonna get down to Bogano and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. Nice. It'll be fun for sure. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, so everybody watching, thanks. It looks like our chat room is lively already here, so that's awesome. We got Alex, we got Chris, we got Ryan over there in the chat room. You guys could always join us every Friday, just about 9 o'clock Eastern, to join in on the conversation as we are talking. And if you are watching currently or after the fact, we are also available on all podcast platforms. So make sure you go ahead and search up Outer Rim Transmission, because you'll be able to find us there. And do send us some feedback. We're opening up the feedback lines for you guys to get questions answered. And it starts all this week. We are going to save a couple questions for the end of this episode, and you guys can get your questions in by using hashtag Outer Rim Transmission. We also have an email address, outerrimtransmission@gmail.com, if your questions are longer than 140 characters or whatever the heck the tweets are these days. So that being said, what is out this week? Well, quite a bit for Star Wars comics, quite a bit for the High Republic. In fact, I'm looking at this list, and it's literally all High Republic comics. So if you're a fan of that, it's a good week for you. So we have the High Republic #8. That is already out. That is all about this 3-part arc. It comes to an end with the Drengir, with the Hutts teaming up with the Jedi. They are going to this planet. And I'm not going to spoil it. You could also watch my review that is coming out at the end of the month. It's not up yet. But basically, long story short, the Drengir threat is not distinguished, but it is put on hold. We'll say that. The High Republic Adventures, the Monster at Temple Peak, is a real close look at this Saber for Hire character. Kind of reminds me of the Witcher, Geralt of Rivia, who is like this ex-Jedi character that's on her own. She's going about doing adventures, and it's about this one monster she has to track and kill. So it's part 1 of 4. But then this Saturday, everybody go to your local comic book store. It's free comic book day. If you guys don't know what that is, once a year, most comic book retailers will partake in this, where it's literally you walk in a store and it's probably 20-25 comics, all from different publishers, DC, Marvel, IDW, you name it. They're probably going to have at least one issue of some sort on the rack, so you guys can just walk in, pull it. I mean, of course, try to support your comic book retailers. If you pick up a free comic, maybe try to pick up like a $15 trade. There's a million Star Wars trades out there. go pick up Darth Vader Volume 1, The Imperial Machine. Go pick up, Trade 1 of The High Republic, Rise of Kylo Ren. There's so many out there. Support those guys, but also go to pick up 2 free comic book Star Wars issues. We got the High Republic Adventures, which is going to follow a couple characters from the Star Wars Adventures comics, and we also have the manga, which is coming out, The Edge of Balance. That's this really cool manga, High Republic story. We get a preview of that. The full issue is coming out actually in September, or the volume, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. 4 different Star Wars comics to pick up this week in your local store. Moving into our first news story, we don't have a whole lot this week. We're going to spend a lot of time, by the way, on the Bad Batch Season 1 finale. So hopefully you guys that are watching now or after the fact have watched that. But before we get into that, there's some business as far as some articles on StarWars.com I want to talk about. The only one, actually, now that I'm looking at this, the only one we have this week is kind of good news, but it's also kind of bad news at the same time. So there's this VR game called Tales from Galaxy's Edge, and it came out to launch the Quest 2, which is a virtual reality portable system. It's an amazing system. It's a big upgrade from the original Oculus Quest, and it's a really fun game where you're playing around Galaxy's Edge, like the place that you go basically in person in the park. It's like the wild area around that you actually don't get to visit in person. So it's like a lot of cool adventures. It's all free flowing. You get to interact. It's a really interesting game. And the unfortunate thing is it looked like they had like 3 or 4 parts. Cause if you look into like one of the menus, it has like part 1, part 2 or whatever, update 1, 2, 3. They came out with an article saying The Last Call is announced, and instead of being part 2, they named it The Last Call because it's actually going to be the last update for the game, the only and the last update. So take with that what you will. It kind of sucks because I feel like this game could have been like a nice little platform to give us like a little update every, 6 to 8 months or something like that. And by the time this expansion comes out, or whatever you want to call it, we don't even have an exact date. It will have at least been a year since the actual game came out. So that tells me that unfortunately due to the pandemic, I mean, this is all personal speculation. I think that they just decided, okay, things aren't maybe working out the way they wanted to, because obviously the pandemic threw a wrench in things. So production, especially on a game like this, where you probably have to have a lot of motion capture. And if it's like COVID, everything's getting backed up now. So I guess they decided to just kill this thing, which is, it really sucks because this thing had promise. Granted, it could also have been a financial thing, because I don't know how many people besides myself I've ever heard talking about this game, honestly. It's very niche. Like, we talk about like animation being niche. Like, there might be 0.5% of the population of Star Wars fans that might have played this thing, I feel like, because you have to spend like $300 for the headset and $30 for the game.
Right. Did you say which company made this game or is in charge of making it?
ILMX Labs. So they are like the official Star Wars ILM people that make the VR games. Okay. Yeah.
Because did they help with the Vader one? I thought they
did. Yeah, they were the one that made that. And then I was like, oh, great. They know how to make a really good VR game. And then they went to make this, and it was like, yes, this game has blasters. It's like not on rails, because the Vader game was on rails. Like you had to basically go to the directions that they were telling you. You had to look at the areas they wanted to have you to look at. Whereas in this game, you could actually take your time, play like hollow darts, go around, do side quests. It was more open world, if not really the best way to describe it, but more off rails than the other game. So, I guess another one bites the dust in the Star Wars game sphere.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like ever since Lucasfilm took over Disney took over Lucasfilm, I feel like the gaming department has been really like lacking. I mean, I know there's been like some hits with the mobile games or maybe Lego Star Wars, but I think I guess Jedi Fallen Order was like their number 1 hit that they've had thus far. But I just remember like the old Lucas Art days where like every couple years there was like a dope ass game that came out and we're like, okay, that's fire, So now I just feel like with EA, or I guess they have Frostbite or whomever is involved with the gaming corporate or part of it, it's like they're very hit and miss, and I'm not. I guess the best word to use would be lukewarm about the video game, like department now.
Yeah.
And again, I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping they get back on track because, again, that's one thing about Star Wars I really do enjoy is the gaming component. Like I
Hmm.
still play the Star Wars mobile game on my phone every day.
Wait,
I really
what?
enjoy that game. That's the like the Heroes one
Oh,
or something.
Galaxy
You
of
know what I'm talking?
Heroes?
Yeah, I play that one like weekly, like literally every
Whoa.
day I play it. So and it could be for like 10 minutes here that I just play it because I just really enjoy it.
So what
But
characters do you have? Because you must have some pretty good characters if you play it every day.
yeah, God, I played this game for like a couple years now. I mean, I've gotten like most of the Luke Skywalkers except for the Jedi Knight Luke. I gotten the majority of Kylo Ren's except for the Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. I mean, I'm just getting character. It takes time,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's just I just play it here or there, just a couple times a day or once a day. It just is what it
Yeah.
is. But I really enjoy that game.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, I mean, I still enjoy playing the Force Unleashed video games or Battlefront, or like even last week, actually, I sent you guys a picture of me buying Rogue Squadron on Nintendo
Oh
64.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
The
I found that
classic.
game at a store in Maryland for like $15. So it's like I still
Oh.
enjoy those games, and I'm sure everyone who's listening or watching, you remember how badass Star Wars Rogue Squadron was on
Oh
Nintendo
yeah.
64. Like that game still holds up. So
Oh yeah.
it's just I miss games like that. I wish we got that type of excitement now in the current I guess genre or
Yeah.
current, you know, company of Lucasfilm. That'd be great, or even just those gaming department. It'd just be
We're
awesome.
gonna
But yeah,
we're gonna get that. We're gonna get what we did 10 years ago. Without a
yeah,
doubt. The reason why I say
Yep.
that is because they made a whole division for games like 6 months ago. They announced like, oh, what
yeah.
is it? Lucasfilm Games. And
Yeah, that's right. I remember you bringing that up because you were like, that's pretty much the old LucasArts.
yeah, because
Hopefully,
what they're doing is they're not gonna just give it all to EA. Now every developer out there that like I guess they'll pitch a game to Lucasfilm and they'll be like, hey, I can make this game. It's going to be a cover-based shooter revolving around the time of the Dark Times, involving a squad maybe called Bad or something. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, we could use that game. So they can like, completely exponentially increase their production of games. Here's the problem though. They just announced that like a couple months ago. It takes like 4 years to make a game, usually. Like a good AAA game that is a really solid game, it could take 3 to 4 years. So we're not going to see this being paid off until like 2024, like when we start seeing game
yeah,
releases, like multiple big releases a year. I think 2023 at the absolute earliest. 2024, I still strongly believe that we might get a Fallen Order sequel in 2022, and at this rate
hmm
probably Lego Star Wars, because we haven't heard crap about that game. So I'm thinking that's going to be out next year too.
no, yeah. I mean, I think of the group, I mean, you guys are probably the bigger gamers than me, but so I mean, I guess they have to look at the market as in a sense of like, what do our clients or I guess our consumers want in a sense of the type of game we're asking for. And I think a lot of times with how games are built now, it's like multiplayer, but also we want that really significant campaign story that can keep us engaged, not just for a week, but for like months.
Yeah, and yeah, Alex Elkins literally just said it in the chat. As soon as I said it, I looked down and laughed because he's like, "What happened to the Lego the Scar Complete
Yeah.
Soccer?" I'm like, "Yeah."
I think Alex, we talked about that like what 2 weeks ago. You mentioned that like they kind of just canned that or they delayed it or something, Chris.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
they're
like
losing
indefinitely
developers. They're losing developers, and they're saying they have issues. I don't know. It's frustrating, and I feel like I have to
Yeah.
talk about it every week here on the podcast at some
Well,
degree.
Right.
Oh yeah, well, I was gonna say, guys, also, I mean, to drop a little bit of good news though for the chat and for you guys, I forgot to bring it up. Here's some like exclusive Mando season 3 news. So earlier today, I forgot to mention to you guys, I was on Jason Ward's podcast, Making Star Wars Show, and he pulled up exclusive set photos from Mando season 3. And because he said he wasn't able to stream the last few days, so he wanted to make it up to his podcast. And one of the set photos he brought up in the chat, like, you can see it if you go check out the stream from today. It's a foot of an AT-AT for Mando season 3. Like he said, he doesn't know what it's for, whatever, but he said he's 100% sure it's an AT-AT foot in Mando season 3. So, maybe we might get AT-ATs.
That would be interesting. I mean, they've done the ATST, but I would like
Yep.
to see how they're going to do the AT-AT. Are they going to do the practical effects, right? Are they going to go ahead and make this thing a stop? What is it called? Stop animation or whatever that is?
Stop animation. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I'm sure they
Yeah,
could. I
yeah.
mean,
If you check out the picture, you can see it. It's crazy. I'll send it to you guys after the show. But But yeah, he pulled it up. It's an AT-AT foot from Mando season 3.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Maybe
interested.
we'll go back to
Just a
Hoth.
tidbit
They're
of
going to see the
info.
records of Echo
Yeah.
Base or something like that. That'd be weird.
Right. Yeah, Chris, I actually do want to I want to jump on something that we talked about last week a little bit, because I was seeing this throughout of this week, how last week we talked about the pricing for that Star Wars experience. And I know for a fact we're not the only ones that feel a certain way about these prices. I guess a lot of fans out there have been up in arms and pretty, I guess, upset about the price. And actually, I was watching what was it, Star Wars Theories channel. I think he had an episode on the other day talking about like the pricing and how like crazy it is. I mean, he was putting the math together, like, you know, if I want to do a significant weekend or something, they were talking about, I have to spend like $15,000 or something to that extent. And it's like, yeah, after hearing that, I'm like, dude, I'm so done. It's like, that's still bizarre to me, but we're not I've been seeing a lot of chatter, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, when this is brought up, how people are very upset about the significant prices that they have. And it isn't just for fans out there. I mean, this is for average people who want to take their kids to something like that. You know, you don't have to be a fan of something like this. You just want to at least go to enjoy yourself. So it's going to be very tough to get average people, I guess, like us, who don't really have all the money in the world to go to something like that. So I just think that's very significant that hopefully Star Wars,
Yep.
well, I guess Disney would recognize, hey, yeah, you don't want to make decisions off of the Twitter universe. But what I mean is, like, if fans really want to be a part of something like this, you might have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? As I've also listened to many podcasts that talked about over the weekend, nobody's excited about spending $6,000. I'll tell you that much. And these are like the hardcore fans. Like, these are not just like if the average Joe guy is not a huge Star Wars fan, is he gonna still throw out $6,000?
That's what I'm saying.
If
Like,
the hardcore guy isn't, then it's like, whoa.
I was just talking to Alex about it actually the other day. Like, here's a funny thing. So I added it up. Our my dad, my sister, and her fiance were going to Hawaii in January, like I mentioned before, for a week. And in total, like our plane tickets, our hotel prices, all that stuff in total, it's just about $6,000. It's like $5,700 for a week in Hawaii.
Is that all together?
That's all together, full
Okay.
plane tickets and hotels combined. Like, obviously no food, but the plane tickets and hotels, that's all. It's about $6,000 for 4 of us.
Right.
And, you know, would you rather spend a week in Hawaii or, you know, 2.5 days in Florida? It's such a tough call. I mean, that's a rabbit hole to go down,
Right.
but yeah.
Yep. So the jury's still out when it comes to pricing, and maybe they will listen. You know, they said prices aren't final in there. In that subtext, it says, like, you know, this is an example. So maybe they'll aim high, see the backlash, be like, all right, let's lower it to like $2,000 per price.
Right.
Or they say, let's increase it.
Oh my gosh. We got an update here, guys. This is, I wouldn't even call this a rumor, actually, because it's from the man himself. So we got a Wired article saying that Taika Waititi is already in the process of writing his film. I believe he's writing and directing. I think he has a co-writer on it. I forget her name. But basically, long story short, he's just saying the script feels very me. So if you guys are a fan of, you know, Thor Ragnarok and all the other things that Taika Waititi has done, then, hey, maybe this is going to be your Star Wars movie. What do you guys feel about that?
Have we really ever had a comedy type Star Wars movie before? I mean, I guess I'm not counting the specials because those are like the comedies, I guess, but like an actual mainstream Star Wars film that's more like a comedy but silly like that, I wouldn't be against it. I mean, and I trust Taika Waititi. I think, however, I think what a lot of directors do when they get to a film franchise that's already established, they do try to make it their own, which is fine. Just don't forget the elements of what that property is. So again, don't forget that you're still doing Star Wars. Make it your own, but just don't forget that you're still doing Star Wars.
An even better example is episode 8 of season 1 of The Mandalorian. So I was thrown off by that episode, and I still don't like it a whole lot. The beginning, and I'm talking about the beginning. Everything else about the episode is awesome, but the whole thing with the troopers I think he took it, in my eyes, a little bit too far. Like, it felt like something out of a comedy a sketch, and we haven't had anything quite like that with them bickering over Grogu. But then you see later on in the episode, and he actually makes you care for a freaking inanimate droid getting destroyed, basically. So he has highs and lows when it comes down to Taika Waititi. Like, he can reel it in. He can, like, really bring in the drama and the epicness and the grandiose sets and everything else. But then he can really hit you upside the face with the comedy
Right.
that I think sometimes a little bit overburdening. I don't know. What do you guys have to say about that? If you looked like, did you guys enjoy his directing of that final season 1 episode?
Yeah, I think it was really good actually. I didn't mind the beginning part of the episode because to me I just took it as how do I say it? Like almost as, it's your everyday stormtroopers bickering. Like, when you guys go to your jobs at work, like they're not, you have coworkers that bicker. Or who knows? You guys I'm sure have bickered before, like back and forth with your coworker complaining about things, and so I think it was fine how it was done, just because it was more, at least more natural for their characters. Unlike, say, in The Last Jedi, I always, that's such a easy dead horse to beat. But in The Last Jedi, you have the whole like your mama joke thing between Poe and Hux, and it's like this is way too Earth-like. But like the way Tyga did it in that final episode, I think he did a really good job, because it's just like your coworkers, bickering at work, complaining, your low-level employees, like trying to figure out who's gonna basically impress the boss. So I didn't mind that, and as you said, I really did enjoy. I think one of the best parts of that entire episode, though, is the droid when he's like, having that heart-to-heart conversation back and forth with Din. I really thought that was the like the crowning point of that episode. But again, I can't wait to see what he has to do with Star Wars.
Yeah, Milton, what about your thoughts on just the direction that Taika Waititi has done in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, I mean, look, I trust him as a filmmaker. I trust him as a storyteller. I mean, everything he's done thus far, whether it's as an actor or as a director, I've been very happy with. Again, if it's bad, I'm gonna let you guys know. You already know I'm gonna be real about it. But like, if it's, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's been coming up clutch hitting doubles and triples the last couple years, so I have to think that he will continue to be consistent. I always like using the phrase consistently consistent. That's what he has been, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, as an actor. So again, I have faith that he'll do what he needs to do to ensure that he'll keep it Star Wars, but also make it something a little different that we hopefully will enjoy.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we'll probably get some news about this later on next year at Star Wars Celebration. I'm hoping there's a nice big panel with, him and Patty Jenkins about, hey, what's coming up next in Star Wars movies, because it's been a while since we got one. So that is something to look forward to, but something to look forward to later on this year. This comes out during the investors call for Disney. Now, Disney Plus, I think, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, 114 million subscribers or something in that ballpark now.
Yeah. Yep, it's about 114, 115.
Weren't they at like 80 something or 90 something the last time they had a call, and that was just like a quarter ago or something like that?
Yeah, it was like the previous quarter, the quarter before that. It was in the 80s, I remember, because it wasn't at 100 yet. I know it wasn't even at 90. I know that for sure. It was like in the low 80s, like 82, 83, something like that. So, they've added another however much that. Yeah,
40 million people. Yeah,
that's
it's crazy.
Insane.
And think about it. A fiscal quarter is what, 3 months, 3.5 months, something like that. I think that's how they balance it out. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, to add almost 40 plus million people to that's crazy.
At $10 a person, basically.
Yeah.
So that's another 400 million a month.
Oh my gosh. They got to make up for all those those months that the theme parks were closed, they were losing billions and billions and billions on that. But
yeah, but you know what though, like, I've maybe again because I don't make money like that. When I hear like them saying they're losing money, which I'm sure they are not, they're not making the profit they normally would make in a normal non-pandemic year. Okay, but I don't think Disney or Lucasfilm is actually hurting for cash. Let's be real here. I mean, again, I'm sure they got shareholders, they got they have to report to. I get that. Um, I mean, listen, they're going to make up those losses. They're going to figure out a way, and on top of that, they're going to figure out a way to maintain their to maintain being even and hopefully be profitable. I mean, it's not like they're a company that's known to be in a negative, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's like actually at the beginning of the pandemic last year, I read a business article that came out because I'm not sure if either you knew, but when George sold Star Wars, a lot of the $4.5 billion he got was in stocks. Like he's like one of the majority stockholders of Lucasfilm still, and his stock, his like value of his stock that he owned, it like went up by like 25% or something last year during the pandemic. And that's directly, I'm assuming that has to directly correlate to like The Mandalorian and Book of Boba and all these projects coming out for Disney Plus.
Well, I mean, think about it too. There are a lot of people that probably did a lot of TV watching during the pandemic. I mean, that was probably the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with everything that was coming out and being released, I mean, again, I think Disney Plus has been a huge significant, I mean, no pun intended, plus for Disney. So, like, it's good. I mean, it's good that happened. However, again, I'm sure there's parts of their business, like the theme parks, like some of the movies that were supposed to go mainstream. That, again, Black Widow is an example. But again, I don't think they're hurting for cash. So let's not get that twisted.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of this is that, they're announcing that, and off this success, they're gonna have something called a Disney Plus Day. It's taking place at the 2-year anniversary of Disney Plus, and it'll take place on November 12th. They're basically saying it's gonna be a day full of announcements for things, maybe something like Marvel, maybe something like Star Wars. So yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. I mean, we had that big day in December where they just announced like 10 Star Wars projects in a matter of 20 minutes, and it just blew our minds. It was like one of the highlights of last year for Star Wars, that's for sure. So what do you guys think they could announce or give us updates on? Do you think they could announce a brand new project, or you think they might just be like, okay, so if that's in November, I think it's very safe to assume that they'll give us a Boba Fett trailer if they didn't do it already by then. They'll give us a Boba Fett trailer and a date, but maybe they'll give us like more of like a slate for 2022. Be like, okay, first quarter of 2022, you guys are gonna get Andor. Then following that, you're gonna get Bad Batch season 2. After that, we're also gonna have Obi-Wan, and following up in the same time around December, we'll have like Mando season 3. What do you guys expect? If they'll announce anything, whatnot at that day.
Right. I mean, well, before I get to my answer, do they still do the D23?
They do, and it's actually supposed to take place next year.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if this was like, I know they do it every other year or something like that.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing, what I would want them to announce would be Obi-Wan. Like I think they should, to me, again, my opinion, I think that's the most anticipated show that's coming besides, I guess, Mando season 3 and Book of Boba Fett. Because I don't know, man, it's Ewan McGregor. Everybody wants to see that story take place, and Hayden Christensen's coming back. So it wouldn't surprise me if they use those two gentlemen to at the, I guess, that investors meeting, whatever they want to call it, Star Wars Day, come out and like be presenters or something like they did with Obi-Wan or Ewan McGregor that one time at Star Wars Celebration where he came out with Kathleen Kennedy. So that's my intention. I want them to talk about that and release a trailer. Like that'd be so dope.
Yeah,
I'd be 10 years old again. I'm not even joking.
I mean, I hate to crush your fears, but or your aspirations. I mean, but I feel like they would want to save something like that for maybe Celebration if it still happens in 2022. I don't think it'll get pushed back, but I think that would be a huge thing for the fans that are there to be like, hey, bring him
Yeah,
out on stage and have a whole panel. That could be like the headline. They always have like a big panel every year. It's like usually the film panel, but instead of a film coming
right.
out later that year, I think they'll save it for like the big one will be that Obi-Wan panel, having him hitting
I
Christensen,
agree.
walking out on the stage.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But the reason why I have to disagree slightly is because, and I know we don't like talking about, politic crap on, the podcast, but I guess people are now saying about the whole Delta variant of the COVID or whatever, how that could be an issue of shutting down the country or again, at least delaying things for like entertainment or whatever. I can see Disney saying, hey, well, let's take advantage of this now and then, make an announcement here. Again, just trying to be devil's advocate on that. But yeah,
Hmm.
I can see them saving that for Disney or Star Wars Celebration or something else.
What about you, Ben? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, a lot of this falls on what the slate is, what the direct order of the shows released are, because as we talked about last week, Star Wars presumably is going to take up 48 out of 52 weeks. So it just all falls down to whatever the slate is, because as of right now, like, I'm not sure if it's even confirmed Andor is done filming. Mando season 3 is not starting until here, I believe, in September. And then Bad Batch, who knows what's going on with that. And then the only one we really know that's basically done filming is Obi-Wan. And all these shows, for example, that we've had so far, well, I guess the only live action show we really had is Mando, but the shows usually come out about a year after they're done filming. So Obi-Wan, I feel like that's going to be the holiday show next year. Like, I feel like it could come out August, September, even October. Like, it could be like
Yeah.
the holiday, I feel like
I think
I've
so.
always I've always felt like the Obi-Wan show, like Star Wars is like an epic holiday thing now. Ever since The Force Awakens did that in December. Like, I feel like Star Wars is a holiday thing, and I feel like Obi-Wan is the epic thing to have during the holidays because then, family's home, etc. So it makes it tough. But then again, I think it's too soon for a trailer. But here's the catch to it all. If Obi-Wan is indeed coming out in early spring, like in March or something, then you would have to have a trailer here in this November thing, like, because it's either that or you'd have to have it right after the Book of Boba, like, be the like post-credit like trailer or
Yeah.
something, because that's the only way, you'd have to build up the marketing over the few months, because from say January Book of Boba is going to end most likely in like early February. So March, April, that's a really tough timeline, whatever the next show is going to be. So I feel like they're going to preview whatever the next show is. It could either be, like I said, I'm not sure if it'll be Kenobi. I would love for it to be Kenobi. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like it might, God, who knows? Maybe they'll like give us an epic Bad Batch trailer to make up for this season. Maybe we'll get something like that. Maybe we'll just have a trailer between Delta Squad and the Bad Batch just having a shootout or something to make up for everything. But I mean, we can maybe do a Bad Batch trailer or something Andor. See, again, like I said, Andor's not confirmed to be done. And then
That's been filming forever too. That one's
then
been filming for the longest.
Yeah, then there's been different rumblings from just different odds and end people saying there's potential Mando season 3 could come out in the spring, like in April or something. That quick, like they could wrap
Hasn't even
filming
started
and
filming yet.
Yeah, I know, that's what I was saying, but there's been some like just not huge level people talking about it, but there's been some people like saying there's rumblings that Mando season 3 could be the like May, April, May, June type show. So it just all matters whatever the slate is. And this is my thing for Mando season 3 potentially, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about it, but I think since Book of Boba, if you look at all like the whole timeline of the show of when it's potentially been filming, because like there was talk of it filming like last November or last October. So the thing is, in total, it was filming for like 7 or 8 months. What if part of that filming was Mando season 3, like parts of it, and the sources and all that crap just got it wrong. Like maybe they misinterpreted what they were seeing as Book of Boba. It could have been just parts of Mando season 3.
Could be.
So it's just a little thought. So I don't know. I think it's all up in the air. Whenever we find out is the next project, like if Star Wars comes out tomorrow and says, hey, our next project is whatever show, I think that's whatever the trailer will be. I think there will be a trailer. One way or another, there will be a trailer, some type of a teaser at that November meeting, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, I think we're gonna just hopefully get the slate. I just want like a nice like Marvel-esque slate, like they did at the wherever they were that one time, where they showed off like all phase 2 or 3, whatever it was. It was like, I want that for 2022. Just give us like, you don't have to give us exact dates or even months, but just like quarter 1 this, quarter 2 that, quarter 3 this, quarter 4 that, just to get our expectations set.
Well, oh yeah, for sure. I think that's a thing, but that just falls back on Star Wars, because I think Star Wars, they have a commitment issue. Like in relationships, they have a commitment issue. I feel like they do not want to put out a slate because they don't want to have to commit to projects, because then if they don't put out a slate, they can just let projects just slowly die out. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Rian Johnson's Last Jedi, but his trilogy, where's that? Nobody's talked about that in years. So, I feel like they're just letting that slowly fade off. And when you do that, when you don't have a slate, you don't have to commit to those. So like, just like these shows, so I feel like when you don't have a slate, you can just kind of let things die out. And the way you let them die out is be like, oh, boom, Obi-Wan show coming out. Boom, Andor. Boom, Mando. Boom, Boba. Boom, Ahsoka. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. We haven't even talked about Ahsoka yet. What if Ahsoka, you know what? That could be the trailer, the Ahsoka trailer, possibly. Like if Ahsoka comes out next year, I'm not sure when that show is.
Oh yeah, I don't
know.
2022. Yeah, well,
it's tough.
I'm just happy that we have an event to look forward to. That seems like it's a sure thing where we're gonna get something at least. So,
all right.
So there you go. And this is where we transition to the Bad Batch. So, as I always say, if you haven't watched the episode, it's the last one of the season, so you better watch it soon because people are talking about it. This is your spoiler alert. So, getting into the Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 16, titled Kamino Lost, Part 2 of the 2-part finale. We have Kamino under siege. Kamino is getting blown to bits. We have the Bad Batch on there. There was this whole thing with Crosshair, and he says he's with the Empire, and he has the ship removed, and it's all his own free will. That happened in the last episode. So now everybody's on the run, trying to get from point A to point B, which is pretty much get the heck out of there. So along the way, there's lots of discussion about why he is still, allied with the Empire and whatnot. They get out of there, and basically Crosshair decides to stay, and everybody goes their own way, and we get a nice little zinger at the end with Nala Se on this forested planet that I don't think we've seen before, lined with tons of Republic commandos, and a human in the same kind of garb as Dr. Pershing from The Mandalorian, and that's how the season ends. So I'll start it off. I watched this episode, and I thought it was fine. I thought it was a fine episode as far as I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was necessarily bad. I think what really hurt this episode was the fact that it was only 25 minutes or so, and it would have really benefited from having Part 1 and Part 2 folded into a single episode, because I feel like all the big moments that were the shocking moments, like Crosshair revealing that big event with the chip, as well as Kamino getting blown up, like all that stuff was already dealt with. So it was kind of just like the falling action, which didn't really excite me a whole lot. This episode kind of felt like a bit of a downer. Like usually a lot of these season finales have had dark stuff, but there's always been like a little light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. I really didn't get any of that kind of uplifting vibes from this episode. But I did think the thing with Crosshair was pretty cool. Okay, this guy is dead set in his ways. They tried to get him to join them. He's not going to do it. So I like that he's actually being stoic in his ideas. But yeah, I will say this is one of my least favorite like season 1 episode finales for a Star Wars animated series, and I'll just throw it over to Milton for first impressions on this one.
Oh man, I agree with you. I think the length was an issue because when I first turned it on this morning, I was like, let me just make sure I see how long it's going to be. I was hoping for like a 45-minute episode. But no, it was 26 minutes or something to that extent. I liked the episode, but I wasn't like hyped about it at all. Like I think the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was like, oh, they do have to escape, so I was looking forward to how they're going to do that. So to me, I really enjoyed the first 5 to 10 minutes of the episode. Them trying to work their way out of Kamino into the water, into the tunnels. It didn't really impact me in any way. It was just like, okay, it's very meh type episode, which is crazy for a finale episode.
Yeah.
Because like I'm trying to think of like the Clone War episode or season finales and how some of those ended on like a nail biter. Like, oh snap! Like I can't wait till the next season how they're gonna play this out. So I mean, it's like I don't know, man. I feel like this show, and I'm sure we'll do an episode where we did the whole arc of the show. But I felt like how the episode ended with the finale is kind of like how the show was. It was very lukewarm to me. There was a lot of good hits and some really bad misses, and it's like, oh man, like Dave Filoni, your team, what are you thinking here? Hopefully season 2 they can make up for how they ended this particular season. Again, it wasn't a bad episode. It just didn't land and stick with me the way I thought it would. So those are my initial impressions.
Yeah. And just to make it clear, we're just going to be talking about the finale tonight. Next week, we're going to devote a large chunk of next week's episode where we're going to just break down season 1 as a whole. We're going to talk about all the good, all the bad, what we like, what we didn't like. So make sure, of course, you guys tune in for next week on our thoughts overall. But I'm going to throw over to Ben. What did you think about this episode?
Well, all right. So where do we begin? I thought the episode was really good if it was a mid-season finale. But since it's a finale, I thought for that it was really bad. Like really, really bad. Because I think the episode was so misplaced. Like you could have moved these last 2 episodes like back 10 slots and we would still have the same, like we would still be in the exact same spot, because I just don't like how there was no stakes for this. And we'll get to that later with one of our viewer questions, but there was no stakes to this episode whatsoever, in my opinion. And then some of the potential like dire outcomes, like the droid dying. It's like, oh no, Crosshair saves the droid, so nobody dies. Everybody gets out scot-free. And it's just like, what is this? So we're basically, so with them at the end, basically going their different ways with Crosshair. So we're basically back to the beginning of the season. Crosshair is, he's still on the Empire side, basically. And the Bad Batch is still the Bad Batch. Like, so basically that episode was basically like, hey guys, this whole season didn't really matter because we're at the same spot where we started. Like, sure, maybe Omega's character, the squad developed as character-wise, but the actual overall story, I feel like it didn't progress. And I just thought it wasn't a good finale whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ben. I think the way you phrased it, if it was a mid-season finale, yeah, it probably would have worked. I'd probably be like, okay, this is a good way to set up the second half of a show, or of a season. Again, it just, I don't want to be negative about this particular just ending, but it just didn't hit me. I don't know, man. It definitely wasn't like the end of Clone Wars. It was. I'm going back to an old show on CW that I used to watch all the time, Smallville.
Yeah.
Every season finale on Smallville,
amazing,
man, hits you hard because you're like, can't wait for season 2, can't wait for season 3, and even their premieres was fire. I know we're talking about a different show, but a season finale should echo its season premiere in the sense of like the premiere gets you hooked, the finale should bring you back. So like. again, the premiere was great. I sing his praises till this day. But now I'm not even hooked to see season 2 yet.
Well, Milton, you know what I was talking about on that other podcast today is I used our CW shows as an example. Look at how many seasons of Green Arrow did this, where the penultimate episode last week was an amazing action-packed episode, and then the finale dealt with the outcome of the action. You know, those shows stuck the landing though.
That's Game of Thrones.
This show didn't stick the landing.
Game of Thrones, every 9th episode, you know, you would have the Red Wedding, you would have the Battle of Blackwater, it'd be the huge, like, all the budget goes in that episode. Then the next episode, yeah, it'd be following action, but they would still make it very interesting, and it would still, like, give you teases of what's to come. What bothered me about this episode is, you know, obviously looking at the runtime, and that always gets me crazy, because, like, in my head, like, when I start to see them turning their wheels in the middle of the episode, and it's like, guys, you got like 5 minutes left, like what's going on here? Like you gotta get to something a little bigger than this, because there was too many moments of people getting stuck under wreckage or people getting stuck behind doors and trying to free them out of the doors. I'm like thinking, like, this is the finale, you got to do more than this, because it's just like stuff we've seen already. Like, oh, okay, we get it. Omega's going to get out of this for the 3rd time in this episode, or however many times she got stuck behind a door under wreckage, stuff like that, where it's just like, okay, this is like, they're treading water, literally, you know, in the show and in the actual plot of the show.
Yeah. I mean, well, that, and then like, some other things I thought about too. So, you know, when they're down there in the wreckage and, you know, there's the potential threat of like all that caving in and stuff, you know, then we have, you know, us proverbially as like the Bad Batch. We have time to stop and reminisce about our room and living here. It's like, this place could collapse. Like, what's going on? Like, you're just, you know, we're going to stop and hang out for a few and go, oh yeah, this is our old room, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you're not. If I was in that situation, I'd be like, how can we get out of here?
And what bothered me was like looking in when they're in that like connecting like glass hallway, and it's just like a little crack, and they're just still talking about it for like 5 minutes, and it takes a freaking sea creature to get them to move anywhere. I'm like, come on, guys, get somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're wasting. It was unnecessary time wasted. You know, like it's funny. Like the only positive thing I can take from this particular, you know, I guess episode was like the animation, man. The animation was so good. Actually, my brother Chris texted me. I think he's watching tonight. He texted me. He said, I'm watching the finale. He's like, the animation has gotten so much better as the show went on. And I was like, I don't disagree at all. Like the way Kamino was burning down, the way it was going into the water, it's like that's some good looking live action type, you know, animation. Really, I mean, it holds up. So I never like am discouraged by the animation of the show. It's like, my God, though, story though. Like the animation department's always been strong in story. What happened with this particular finale? You know, so it's like, I don't understand that. But you know, it's like again, my gripe with The Last Jedi was it's a slow car chase in space. Mm-hmm. This was like the finale. It was a slow burn underwater in a tunnel. It's like, come on, we could have, because I'm thinking they would have escaped quickly.
Yeah.
And then would have somehow got on the Star Destroyer to like handle to stop Rampart, or at least deal with him. I was hoping for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I was telling Ben, I was like, Ben, I was like, Ben, they're gonna be off Kamino in 5 minutes. You watch. And it's the whole episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go, Chris.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in our group chat earlier in the week, what if right as Nala Se was getting captured, you know, we could have cut to that for the first couple minutes of this episode, and maybe she contacts Fennec and is like, hey, Kamino got destroyed, go there and try to rescue Omega, because Fennec was supposed to be like protecting Omega for Nala, and you know, we never really got back to that story thread. So you know, it's just like, you know, we thought maybe potentially Fennec could save the day, and it's like, nope, we're just gonna go underwater and hang out there for the final 25 minutes of the show, basically.
Here's my other thing too, and I thought about this when I was watching it. The Marauder, their ship that they got, right? That platform was still up out of the water. You're telling me that the Empire didn't notice it was sitting there?
Oh, that's true.
Look, honestly, because it was they had to figure out a way. Well, how they get onto the base or Kamino City? Then they're up, so you can see from elevation. They're looking down. I'm sure they have scanners that can track where the ship's at. So you're telling me the Marauder didn't take a hit like that? To me, that's weird storytelling. I would have for sure thought they would have tried to like find where their ship was at to destroy it.
I guess, all that fixing the ship, they made the ship appear invisible to scanners or something. Because didn't they say they did the
stealth.
transponder?
I don't get
Stealth.
it. Yeah. I mean, here's my question. I guess my question for you, Chris and Ben, if you were the story group for this particular finale, how would you have written this?
Okay,
I'm curious to get your thoughts.
I actually don't have either of our thoughts. I have one of our viewers here, Chris. He asked me to read this. So, I'd be happy with, let's see. Okay, I would have done in this one would be kill off AZ, won the droid. He had a good run, but now we're stuck with him. Have Crosshair save Just Omega, then explain to her in his cold way that he's done his job and he's gone. And if you want to live the life you're going to lose people, get used to it. Much better scene in my opinion. So he's like saying just kill the droid. Crosshair teaches her a cold lesson. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not against it because honestly, I honestly thought either someone was dying and then she's going to have to deal with death from a family member like that. Now she's kind of already dealt with it somewhat with one of the Kamino scientists dying that she was close with, but one of her brothers like that, like you need to see her character starting to evolve now because this is supposed to portray, I guess, in her world of being in real life, so she has to see that there are stakes, and I think that's where the show lacks. As a fan, there really aren't any stakes. Who really died this season that we got close with? No one. I mean, it's you know what I'm saying? Like that's weird to me. Because in Clone Wars, I mean, how many Jedi that we knew of for, let's say, a 3-episode arc were killed off, whether that arc or later? We're like, oh damn, that sucks. I actually liked that particular Jedi or that particular character. They killed people in Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't get it because there are often people in the beginning of the season, like in brutal ways, right? Like guys getting shot. It's like, well, what happens is like the villains can kill anybody they want, like because it's a villain, right? When it comes to the good guys, you can't see any of the good guys getting killed or the good guys shooting any bad guys. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, for real, if they want to kill off one character, please kill off Sid at this point because I am so done with her.
Yeah.
Big facts.
Oh yeah. I mean, for your question, Milton, though, like for me, I would have definitely. Well, for one, I would have made these 2 episodes. If you're going to keep it exactly the same, just make it a single episode, a 45-minute, 50-minute episode, and it runs better that way. Like, roll right from the explosion, the destruction of Kamino to Poca City to, this episode. It rolls a lot better. But to me, I would have had them escape pretty quickly if we still keep the 25-minute time budget. First 5-7 minutes, have them escape. You could leave Crosshair, don't deal with that right now. And then, potentially either have them, you could, if you don't want to have them interact with the Imperials, God forbid, let's say we could have them go back to Sid's and be like, hey, how do you track down Imperial? Like have Omega freaking out, like we got to go back for Nala Se, blah, blah. Because, her MO is like, we got to save everybody. So, she would be freaking out. We need to go save Nala Se. And then Sid could be like, hey, I know this bounty hunter or something that can help you track him down. His name's Boba Fett. You got to find him and blah, blah, blah. And then have the final 10 minutes just be them going to wherever Boba potentially is, and then have the final shot be Boba or something like that, or the Slave One even. But for what we got in this episode, it was so drawn out. And then the final scene of the show, of the episode, I thought was almost like a slap in the face to fans, like basically saying, hey, you guys probably weren't paying attention last week or the week before when they said they secured this Kamino and scientists. So we're going to just blatantly say it and say, hey, Nala say we have plans for you. Like, we already knew that. So
Yeah, we knew that.
what's the point of regurgitating it? Like,
Yeah.
it's just basically saying, hey, fans, you probably weren't paying attention. So let's just say it again. So,
we listen. We already know her plans.
Yeah.
She's going to help the Emperor build the cloning technology to help keep him around for a while. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they're going to. That's why they stole the tech. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they'll probably tell it in a comic book or whatever. But we know how it plays out in the Rise of Skywalker. So like, that's the reason why they kept her, because she's that head scientist. And
Yep.
I don't know. I'm just not. It wasn't a trash episode. It just wasn't a great finale.
Mhm.
I even think of the Rebel season 1 ending.
Oh, that was great.
Whenever Tarkin comes out of the ship, talks to who's the guy with the chin straps on his face?
Callus.
Agent Callus. Yeah, and like Vader just walks out, doesn't say a word.
Yeah.
Just breathes, and I'm like, son, that's fire. That's how you end a finale and end a season.
And then you also
I'm
had
thinking at
Ahsoka
least
coming
give
down
us
the
something
ladder.
like that.
Yeah, and then Star Wars Resistance season 1 finale was even better. That was a really good season finale because they killed the Red Baron guy, and then like they had awesome like all these it was epic that Kamino is falling apart. I'm not saying that wasn't like climactic, but these other things, like you had Jedi dueling with like Kanan and Grand Inquisitor and Grand Inquisitor like dying and all this crazy stuff. It was like, holy crap, like the stakes were so much higher in these other shows, and it just, I wish the stakes were just a little bit higher.
Like, that's why it's kind of surprised me, because like, I know Dave Filoni, he's the executive, I guess, producer or whatever on this particular show. He's not really like writing and directing all the time, from my understanding. He just kind of oversees some of it.
Yeah.
But still, though, your name's on it, so I would at least think Dave Filoni would be really heavily involved, whether it's in the premiere or the finales of like a show that he's overseeing. And like I said, I just think of like how Rebel season 1 and 2 ended. I mean, who I was thinking was going to show up? At least like Rex rescuing the team.
Yeah.
Because they did say something about, hey, send a message out to Rex, or something happens to us, go get Rex or something. Maybe they were trying to foreshadow like to the audience, hey, Rex might actually know what's going on. He may just show up to help these guys.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the positive here, because it's kind of overbearing to talk about the negative so much. I'll start off with some things I just noted in my notes here. I did like in the beginning of the episode when you see Rampart just firing at the city, and there's like this clone that comes up behind him, and he actually like stumbles on his words as he says Kamino. Like he kind of like stutters a little bit. I'm like the clone, even though he's like programmed, like even him working for the Empire is like, oh crap, like my own city, my own birthplace has been destroyed. So I thought that was really interesting. Did you guys pick up on that?
Yep. Oh yeah, 100%. Like, honestly, that little moment was really cool, and it just gave me flashbacks back to playing the old classic Battlefront 2. Because when you're going and hunting down the Jedi, and that they have these cutscenes and Tamara Morrison's narrating, and Tamara Morrison's like, it's good the Jedi couldn't see our faces that day, and basically they were, the clones are talking about like feeling regret when they were doing it, like, back in that old Battlefront game. So it made me think of that, because I was like, man, that clone's kind of like feeling bad about it, So that was cool.
Yeah,
it shows that no matter
didn't notice
what.
that. I didn't catch it. So, I mean, now I may have to go just to watch the part again. So that's very interesting. I mean, think about it. Like, these guys were loyal to Kamino. They were their creators. The Kaminoans were their parents. So I can understand having that flutter in your voice. I mean, if someone told me, hey, Milton, you got to go, even though, let's say our government got restructured, hey, you got to blow up the town where you grew up in and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, fine, so be it. But I'd be kind of weird about it. I'd have some feelings. So it's definitely tough. And I'm glad that they at least show that these clones still care.
Yeah, and I think that could be foreshadowing as well. Like, hey, these clones aren't completely like programmed killers. Like they do have some sympathy, which could mean, hey, Kamino's destroyed doesn't mean there's a clone uprising that can happen on another planet. They could do it differently than Legends. So I think there's still a possibility that a lot of these clones have seen firsthand their oppressors, the Empire, like doing damage to their own world, and they're standing there just watching. I think this is going to come back to bite the Empire in their ass, and they're going to be like, they're going to have an uprising on their hands. And I think Nalase with those Republic commandos might have something to do with it.
What if, I mean, here's a little idea to throw out there. What if part of like Nalase's little backup plan, it's something like the droid thing, like the Trade Federation droids? What if like when Kamino gets destroyed, it like slowly like deteriorates the chips, like, I don't know, something like wavelengths in the chips, like, so they slowly, come back to not being evil. And that's why they have to get eliminated. Like Kamino's like the main Verizon tower, basically, like, I mean, there's that. But for me, for a positive for this show, like I've said since the beginning, Omega's been my favorite character, for the most part, other than a few episodes in the middle. But for the most part, she's been my favorite character. And I really liked her. I thought her moment with Crosshair at the end was really good, minus the fact that he saved the droid. I didn't like that at all, because it's like, like you said, Milton, she should learn stakes. But her conversation with Crosshair is showing that, like, her character, even though she's a kid, is growing, because, she's basically telling him, like, hey, these are your brothers, they're my brothers too, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was a really good moment, in my opinion. And it just shows like her character growing, like more mature, for her still being like younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And like I said, I think I actually remember making the comment, because what did she do? Did she go back? Oh, she got out of the tube to save AZ, and that kind of pissed me off. And I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, just let it, like, and again, her character's consistent. She wants to save her crew. She's all about the family element. I love that about her. However, that's going to be her downfall as the series goes on, because she could have really like put the crew in danger. I mean, luckily Crosshair's a hell of a shot and made a great decision to save her and the robot. But it's like, you can't that won't always happen. Crosshair won't always be there, or one of her clone brothers won't always be there to save her. So I think she needs to start understanding, saying, hey, I may have to sacrifice for the greater good sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, it's classic Star Wars. We got to have a droid. So whether or not I'm sold on AZ-1 or AZ-3, whatever the droid's designation is, it's interesting that they actually brought a droid to be like part of the crew at the end of the season, rather than having a droid the whole time there. Yeah, granted, you could say Gonky or whatever, the Gonk droid on the ship was a droid, but it really didn't have a personality, and it was just there as like a gasoline pump. So it's cool that they introduced a droid on the team in a different kind of way. So I got to give them credit for that. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a droid and they're going to be with you the whole episode. Like, oh, we will go back. The droid's been there the whole time. So, yeah.
Oh, I think part of that actually has to do with Wrecker, just because you'd have too many comedians with the team, basically.
Yeah. Let's see. Another one here. We already talked about the clones at the end. Oh, I liked how it was like very metaphorical, or came around full circle, I should say, when they go into cloning tubes, the clone capsule things that go up to the surface. For me, that almost felt like their rebirth. Like, I could look at this like very deep cut-ish, like where it's like, okay, they're going out of the depths of Kamino, and they go out to Kamino, and we see Kamino, this bright sun that we've never seen before. We've always seen it gloomy and raining, and I guess that could be hope. Not that it was explicitly said,
right.
But the light and the brightness could, be the sign of hope.
Yeah, well, symbolically, if you think about it,
symbolically,
Kamino has always, ever since Sifo Dyas like commissioned the clone army, and all that stuff, like that's all basically been under Darth Sidious. So, Kamino, if you look at it that way, Kamino has basically been under like the dark cloud of the Sith this entire time. And basically the Kamino, like the facilities and things being destroyed, now the sun's out and this sort of stuff, like, it looks, more symbolically like Kamino's like almost freed, where, now they have hope basically versus like being under the thumb of the Empire, because the Empire presumably is not going back there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I agree with that. I mean, there's not really much more I can add to that except for, I could see it being some type of hope, I guess symbol. To me, I think it could be I mean, I think like you said, it could be a rebirth just because, it's a time where it was very prosperous in the sense of the Republic, but then at the same time, it was like the hand of death, pretty much. They just didn't know it. So yeah, it's craziness, but no, I thought overall it was a great scene. Visually it just looks so good. Like again,
Yeah.
the animation's fire.
Yeah, I've never seen water look so good in any animated thing ever. Like video game or otherwise. That water looked incredible. And like you seen her swimming underwater and like the way her hair was moving was so realistic. It was like, holy crap, they put all the budget into this last episode apparently.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like the visuals were great. They were really great. There's nothing to complain about it. Like the last two episodes visually have been awesome.
Yeah, so let's talk about overall the plot threads that were introduced and where they come to conclusion in this episode. So I guess the Empire plot was dealt with okay, right? Like we see, the Kaminoans were all together at the beginning of the season, and in this episode we find out that Nalase is going to be moved off site and all that, and we find out that she basically lost her hold on the Kamino and cloning tech. So that plot thread was resolved. Another one was with Crosshair. I guess you could say it's still in progress, like it's not completely resolved because he's still on his own, but they at least got a chance to deal with him in this episode. Okay. As far as like knowing more about Omega and her backstory, I feel like that was still left on the back burner. We really don't know much more other than the fact that she says that she's older than the clones, even though they're older looking. She's still older because she's not genetically enhanced to age faster. So we found out a little bit more of her backstory, and for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong, those were really like the three major plot threads throughout this overall season, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the one that stood out for me in this finale was the Crosshair, I guess, storyline because he is, heavily convinced that the Empire is right and that good soldiers follow orders. And it's like, will the Empire really take you back at this point? They try to kill you. They tried to murder you. And he's, for some weird reason, is like riding them heavy, like about, hey, it's all about the Empire. It's weird. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm curious to see where they're going to take that in season 2 because, again, it's tangibly witnessed. The Empire don't care about you. And then you're still saying, oh, no, I want to be part of the Empire's plan and have that power. Like, that really? Someone kill you, you want to still join them. All right, that's goofy, but okay.
Yeah, like how many times they're going to be burned by the Empire to finally realize that they are not a good organization to be part of? It's like, come
Yeah,
on, man, they
like, come
destroyed
on,
your
miss me
home
with that.
place. Like, come on. I
Yeah,
don't
miss me
know
with
any.
that. I don't
Yeah,
understand that thinking. I mean, again, maybe it'll play out better in season 2, but it's like, what power do you think you're really going to have? You're just a clone. They're using you.
hmm. I mean, maybe he'll be able to do damage from the inside, right? He could be like the Agent Callus in this, where he defects eventually. And now that, the bug is planted in his mind about how, the Bad Batch kind of still want him around, but he decided to go off base. Now if the Empire tells him to go after them, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll just kind of like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. I would like to see a Crosshair, kind of like what Bad Batch is doing, going out on his own, being a marksman, becoming maybe a bounty hunter, and just like, getting in contact with the crew every once in a while to do a mission, something like that. But I don't know how long he's gonna stay in the Empire, or they're gonna like basically imprison him and make him a death trooper at some point where he has no more free thought, maybe.
Yeah, I think with him, I mean, in general they basically did like the crash landing of storylines. Like, they finished they finished them up, but they were like crash landing like Obi-Wan and Anakin and Palpatine at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. Like they were coming in hot, to say the least, with a lot of these storylines like crashing them. But like the Crosshair storyline specifically, I don't know how I feel about it, just because it's like, so you have him so steadfast on the Empire, and then he still shows he has some human left to him, because he knew how much AZ meant to Omega, so then he saves Omega for her. But then again, here's another part that I've noticed a lot of like reviewers not mention this though. Did he save her because he has a little bit of good heart in him, because like the symbolicness of the, the hope, the bright, like all the stuff we talked about? Is it that, or is it him just being like, like you would with like, say, a fellow soldier, like, say if you and an enemy soldier got into a dire spot and you save each other, at the end of the day, you're still enemies. Like, because he literally said, call us even, to Omega. So is he actually having a good heart, or is it just him just basically saying, hey, we're square, I still don't really care about you? And he's so steadfast on the Empire, so it's hard to read whether he's actually for the Empire or he's actually getting a little bit of a good heart to him.
Oh, Alex Elkins is saying he saved her because they were even then for saving him.
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, very interesting. So, well, you guys could probably already expect what the scores on this one was gonna be. So, just hearing our thoughts, I'll throw it over to Milton first, man. Final thoughts on this one.
Yeah. And before I give my thoughts, I'm curious to see what the chat's going to give for the score for this particular episode, because I don't think we ever gotten any chat scores before. So I'm curious if they're going to put some out there today for this finale. But overall, I mean, look. It was I liked the start of the finale. I thought you have to really see how things would play out, who would die, who would live to that extent. I love the first 5 to 10 minutes. Animation was on point. The music, we don't really talked about that much. The music really held up in this particular episode. Overall, it wasn't a terrible episode. It just wasn't a great finale. It didn't land for me. I wish there was more. It could have been fleshed out more with the length of time. However, we didn't get that. To me, if I had to rank this out of 10, I think I'm being generous here. It'd be a 5.5 out of 10.
Okay, that's fair. That's the middle ground there. All right.
I would say for mine, so as I said, like the episode, I have a lot of problems with it because I feel like it was a lot of wasted time. It's just a waste of a finale. In my opinion, like, well, here's a fun way to look at it. It's a really good mid-season finale if you include next season and say this is a 32 episode first season. I mean, this would be a good mid-season finale then. But for this being the regular season finale, it's like, what is going on? Like, I just, like I said, you could have moved these 2 episodes to the beginning of the season and it still would have somewhat made sense. So, or at, middle of the season. So, I don't know. I just feel like it was really wishy-washy on a lot of things. Again, we had a lot of wasted time. Like, you're standing around and the glass is cracked when you're underwater. Like, what's going on here? Like, you can't be standing around, hanging out. You got to get moving. And then there was no stakes, as we said, because, and, we'll get to that with one of our viewer questions. But, like, there was no stakes in this episode. And then you have this potential stakes that did happen with AZ. I was like, oh yeah, it's fine if the robot dies because that'll affect Omega a little bit. And it, it's like your whole thing of like teaching a kid, like, hey, if you let your dog outside when you're a kid and it gets hit by a car, like that's a lesson you're going to forever learn. So like, Omega, maybe if AZ would have died, maybe Omega would have learned, like, hey, this is bad. But also another thing, they could have just let AZ sink and then fish the droid back up. Like, it's a droid. Like, I mean, it's a droid. Like, who cares if its battery shut off? We've seen 3POs get shut off plenty of times. I mean, he gets shut off by Leia multiple times in Empire Strikes Back.
We've seen 3PO get blown up.
Yeah, or blown up. Yeah, blown up right before he gets shut off. So you have all these
we've
things.
seen Leia blown up into space, frozen, and still alive. Just saying.
Yeah, and I can't even go down that rabbit hole. And a droid, and the droid doesn't. I mean, it survives. Like, it was bad. And then I don't know. Like I said, I think the best part of this finale, I really did like Omega's conversation with Crosshair. Like, I think it was really good, just because it was a good moment, like showing she's really part of the squad. Like, that whole shtick. Like, I thought that was pretty good. Overall, for this being a mid-season finale, I would have to give this. I think this is being generous. I'd have to give it a 3 out of 10. Like I thought it was bad for a finale. It was bad because, okay, my thing is, watch the premiere of this show. Watch one of the other episodes. Crosshair was watch the episode where Crosshair said, "Can I hunt them?" And then watch the last 2 episodes, this episode and the last one, and you're good. You could watch 4 episodes out of this season and you're not going to miss anything. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was a really bad finale. I hope it gets better. I mean, we can only go up from a 3 out of 10. We can only go up.
Yeah. So 3 out of 10 from Ben. We got, what was it, a 5 out of 10 from Milton?
Yeah, 5.5.
5.5. Okay. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. I'll be the most optimistic out of this crew here. But what I will say, and I'll echo what I said, no pun intended, off of the top, we need to get more from Echo. Okay, I'm going to say right now, Echo needs more to do in season 2 because I feel like this guy's such a veteran and he deserves more than what he's been given in this season. I think it's just a crime he's been underused. But regardless of the fact, my final thoughts on this episode were, yes, I would have liked to see it condensed in one single episode. I feel like all the big hits were already previously explored, and this episode felt like it wasted time. It felt like it was treading water. There definitely were plenty of characters doing that later on in the episode, and that was exciting. Seeing the symbolism as we talked about with them rising from the watery grave of Kamino and being almost like reborn with the sunlight, having a little bit of hope. But just the overall episode felt like it just lacked anything like substantially uplifting towards the end. Any kind of tease, any kind of thing for what the Bad Batch was going to do next would have made this episode better if we would actually seen, like, hey, are they going to make the choice? There was that whole thing with the whole season about Hunter. Like, who is he working for? Like, who is he we've seen the girls from the Clone Wars season 8 in there, or season 7. We see Rex, they're all affiliated with maybe the early rebellion. We see Saul Guerrera. I feel like that plot thread wasn't addressed. There wasn't really any ramifications. I guess they're going to just go back to Sid and have a good time there doing some more missions. We'll see. But yeah, comparing this to other season finales of other Star Wars series, it's definitely one of the lower ones. It wasn't as epic as I think it could have been, but I guess they didn't have to aim for that exactly. This has always been a more personalized, character-driven story. But I think this, like you said, Milton, more of like a mid-season finale. This would have been a great thing there. But I expected a little bit more. So yeah, I'm going to have to give this a 6.5 out of 10. Milton, you asked and you shall receive, because we did get some audience scores in the chat. You guys can always be a part of the chat and do the same. So we have Chris Forsyth giving it a 4 out of 10. We have Christopher Weber, your brother there, 8 out of 10. But for a finale, he's saying more like a 5. Alex Elkins also has the same kind of mind share there. He's saying 4 out of 10 for our season finale, 6 out of 10 for just a regular episode. Dark Dirty Gonzo, he's saying he enjoyed this episode as well. He's saying my favorite episodes this season, if I had to pick the three, were Escape from Kamino Part 1, Infested, and Battle Scars. So there you go. I gotta just like break the fourth wall, if you will, and say, why was Infested one of your favorite episodes?
We all were thinking the same thing. The bug episode.
Don't get me started on that one.
I mean, everybody's open
that's
to
a
their
rabbit
own
hole.
criticism and all, but I'm very curious to see how this could be on the higher end of your list.
Yeah. Drop your reason in. Let's hear it while we finish this up.
But so there you go. And as I said off the top of this discussion, we are going to be doing the season 1 discussion as a whole next week. So you guys can tune in live 9 o'clock, as always, Eastern time, of course, next Friday. And we'll definitely that'll be our headline discussion. We'll be talking about what we like, what we didn't like, what could be for maybe a future season 2, what we could expect for the Bad Batch. And now that we have the confirmation that we are getting a season 2. So we are going to have a little bit more audience interaction, I guess you could say. We are doing something called the community Q&A. Maybe not every episode. We might let them pile up every once in a while, but since we're announcing it, we're going to do a couple today. So we've asked you guys earlier on in the week to submit your questions on Twitter, at least hashtag Outer Rim Transmission. You can send in any Star Wars topic you want to talk about, and we're going to do our best to address it there. If you don't have Twitter, no big deal. You can always send us in an email, outerrimtransmission@gmail.com. So, Ben, I believe you have the people asking us the Star Wars questions. So I'm going to throw it over to you, man, to read off our first question.
Oh, give me 1 second. I got to grab my phone, actually. I thought you had it pulled up. one moment.
I could do it myself. Hold on. I will do it because I know it's
on
live,
man. It's live TV.
We're doing it live, and I'm throwing audibles.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome that we're getting more fan interaction like that. So I really encourage that, people who are listening and watching, and please, tweet, email your questions. We are all about trying to make this show very open to you guys and make you guys part of it. So we really do appreciate the questions that we've gotten this week. So thank you.
All right. So I got our first question here. And this one comes from Ryan at Ryman113 on Twitter. And he's saying, just watch the end of the Bad Batch Season 1. What do you think the Empire's plan for Nalase, since they are working more with recruits and less with clones? Maybe to eventually clone the Emperor for the Rise of Skywalker. So yes, we're going to have a lot more speculation coming around for next week. But hey, why don't we just answer this one, because they asked us this one. So we're going to throw it to everybody here in the party. I'm going to throw it over to Ben on this one first.
I think there's a solid chance it'll connect, because I think we're falling along the lines of, it's a concern of mine with Disney and Star Wars right now. Are we, and this is like a meta question as well for even the Mandoverse, are we having all of these projects to make the sequels better? Because if you look at the Clone Wars was used to make the prequel trilogy a lot better, which it did. But are we getting these projects basically to fill in the creative gaps that they left open? So, my thing is, I think there's a good chance that this is going to be connected to the Palpatine cloning stuff and all of that with Snoke. But I don't know if we'll see it directly in the show, because it's really not directly related to the Bad Batch themselves, unless they say, hey, let's go save Nala Se. Then they might bump into run into that story thread. But I don't think we'll see it directly on screen. But I do think it will be eventually long-term connected, because we do know in Mando, Dr. Pershing is with the Empire, so he has to join, the Kaminoans have to join the Empire at some point to work on the cloning-related stuff for Palpatine's plans. So this is the like nexus point, if you will, that is going to potentially lead to Snoke, I think.
Yeah, so you answered it pretty well there. It's like if we get a look at this location, it's got to be tied to a certain character, and nobody has to have this information and survive with it. They're gonna have to die because otherwise, the rebellion would get that information and they would know that the emperor dead does not mean he's dead forever, and the first order would never rise to power and all that good stuff. So it's gonna have to be somebody that's in the empire. We're gonna have to have their perspective. I mean, maybe that's the benefit of having Crosshair still on the other side, is that we'll still be able to get that imperial perspective. But I think whoever finds this stuff out is going to die ultimately because they just can't be left with that information because it won't make sense for the rest of the story going forward.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo everything Ben said, I think I've said it earlier in our episode, how we all know what the cloning technology is going to be used for. It's going to be used for the Empire's, doing. It just makes sense. And even thinking about back to how you mentioned, Ben, how meta this could be back in not Phantom Menace, Mando season 2 with the whole cloning stuff there. Like, I mean, it just makes sense story-wise for Star Wars to, again, try to tie it all together and to tie it into what happened with the sequel trilogy. I mean, because we knew about cloning from the prequels, but did we honestly think before the sequel trilogy came out that they were going to go back to using cloning technology? No one thought that. That was all in Legends. And we knew that from at the time, they weren't going to take those Legend stories word for word or bit by bit. So I think they're not backtracking. I think they're trying to fill in the gaps. It's probably the best way to put it.
And they've already been doing that. Like I mentioned in one of the Darth Vader comics, the Vader literally goes to Exegol and finds everything that he's hiding. And that's why Vader's like, I want to work with the Emperor again because the Emperor is the only one that I know holds the power to harness that kind of force strength and whatnot.
Right.
We did get a response. We're gonna go back to that rundown of Nerdy Gonzo on YouTube there. He's got his explanation for why Infected is one of his top 3 Star Wars The Bad Batch episodes. He's saying, I enjoyed Sid, one of my favorite new characters. The banter and the nice change of pace feel it was one of those episodes that will pay off later in the end. And you know what? This was prior to a season 2 announcement. So I was like, okay, like if this is a one and done season, this episode is completely useless and a waste of time. And I mean, I figured there's going to be a season 2, but I had to say that because we didn't know there was going to be a season 2. So yeah, you got to have episodes like that, that are going to feel like a waste of time, but they're there to build up the world builders. I find it funny how he enjoyed Sid, and Milton literally said it's like his least favorite character in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, it's okay, man. It's all good. Listen, what's his name? Dark Nerdy
Gonzo, yeah.
Hey, man, enjoy the character all day. I can't even hate on you for that. I appreciate you, brother, for being here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the big thing, too. We all crack jokes about certain things like that Infested episode. God, I surely had a good time talking about that. We had a lot of things to say about that episode. But even us talking about The Last Jedi, for example. That's clearly not our favorite movie. But my thing is, if some Star Wars fan loves Star Wars and finds The Last Jedi to be 10 out of 10, that's awesome. That's better because that's more people in the fandom. And to me, that's the most important thing about Star Wars. A lot of fans forget, there's all this debate online. A lot of people forget we're all in the same family here. We're all on the same team. Don't tear the team apart just because you're disagreeing on what plays we're running. We're still on the same team here. We're still having the same goal of wanting good Star Wars content.
Yeah.
So let's read our other content, our other question here from our community there, Ben.
Yep. All right. So we got a question from Alex Elkins, and he said, did the Bad Batch Season 2 announcement 2 weeks before the finale ruin the excitement for the finale for you guys at all? And he said, for me, hold up, my Twitter refreshed. For me, he said before the announcement, he thought they would all potentially die in the finale, but now that we know now that we know there was another season, it's it's obviously not true. So like, and it did that announcement for me personally. Like, thanks to Alex Elkins 1138 on Twitter. Great handle there. But for me, it did. It messed up the finale for me because we had all of these like moments, like, when they were going out the tubes, when, obviously Omega wasn't going to die. They're not going to kill a kid in in an anime show. But, if you would have had like Hunter go out there in the water, or like Wrecker or one of those characters, like that would have put stakes on it. But there was no stakes because as soon as they all started going underwater, I thought, hey, we got a season 2 of this show, so this doesn't matter because they are all going to survive. Like, so I don't know. It ruined the finale for me, honestly. Like, if we wouldn't have known that, instead of my score being like a 3 out of 10, it might have been closer to a 5 out of 10. I mean, it still was bad in my opinion, but it would have been closer to like a 5 out of 10 versus a 3. But they totally ruined it by basically just saying, hey guys, our characters have plot armor, so don't worry about them.
I mean, okay, so I'll take the other side of this. I actually was more intrigued because it's like, okay, I can kind of take a relieving breath. Like, okay, a lot of these episodes I didn't like are gonna have a point now. We're not gonna have as much pressure on the finale because, yeah, if it's a continuing series, some of the lingering questions don't have to be answered, and I don't have to be on the edge of my seat like, okay, what's going on? Is this going to get renewed? Like, just get it over with so that way I can enjoy the finale knowing that it's going to have some kind of conclusion and we could just move on. So that was my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I'll have to, I guess, echo with Chris. It didn't ruin it for me because, again, I always anticipate any show that I watch is going to have another season or 2. Unless they say at the beginning, this is a limited mini-series or something to that extent.
Unless it's Star Wars Resistance and it gets canceled after freaking season 2. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, but even that, though, I think we kind of knew there would be 2 seasons, I think, at the time. But even that, though, like, I feel like with any show that I'm watching, in particular with Star Wars, Bad Batch, like, I assume that with any show is going to tell a complete story for their particular season because each season is a particular arc. So again, it didn't ruin it for me. I was hoping that it would set it up even more for season 2. That's where I was at because I'm hoping that, hey, we know season 2 is coming, let's end this on a bang where we really want to get fans talking about, hey, what will they bring next? How will they expand more of the Imperial story? How will they expand more of the dark times of Star Wars? As Obi-Wan would say.
Oh yeah. Now, yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, I agree to an extent. I just don't. I don't know. It's just kind of. I don't think you should make an announcement. But that's just me. I don't. Even if you have the presumption that there's a season 2 coming, I just don't think you should make the announcement because then to me it just takes away the stakes of the finale. Like say if they would have done that for Loki, like would have. I feel like the finale wouldn't have been as good, honestly.
But I felt like we got an announcement of Loki season 2. When like that, was it that same week or the week before? I don't remember.
It was literally after the episode.
Was it after the episode?
No, it was after
you're right.
the episode.
You're right.
It was post-credit.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah. I mean, and they could have done it that way too. You're not wrong. But I think with a show like The Bad Batch, I mean, let's be real here. It ain't Loki. Okay, like it's facts. It's a good show, but it ain't Loki. So yeah, I'm okay with how they announced it again because I thought the same way with Resistance. I thought they announced it was going to be a short season. I thought it was going to be like 2 for sure, maybe 3 from what I remember way back when. But yeah, I mean, as long as they tell at the end of the day, as long as they tell a good story, it makes sense and it keeps viewers coming back. That's all that matters to me as a fan when I'm watching a show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I totally agree. Now, with that, guys, we do have one more question, actually. So from the same viewer that Ryan, he also asked, so for The Bad Batch, this was earlier in the week before the finale, but he said he had just caught up on the latest episodes, and now he's caught up, obviously, on the finale, but he's curious. Do any of these characters make it into the Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, like like Boba did into the Mandoverse, and like Ahsoka did, like the animated characters crossing over into live action? Do you think any of these characters will make it over? I mean, for me personally, and thanks again, Ryan, for asking that question, but for me, I think none of the squad members will, but I do think Omega will, but it will not be Book of Boba season 1, and she won't be the Mandalorian itself. I think Omega could potentially be in the Book of Boba season 2, because by the time, say, Bad Batch season 2 comes out and ends next year, let's just say it comes out next year. So, Bad Batch season 2 comes out, ends. Let's just say the show cuts there. So we have all of next year, and then Book of Boba wouldn't be coming around till the following year. So that would be enough time for the story threads of, however they would want to introduce Omega into live action. I think that's when we would see her, but the closest time I think we'll see her in live action, it'll be like 2023 most likely, if not later. Because you don't introduce Boba Fett's sister and never go back to it. Like,
that's a good point. I mean, I can see she's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
And maybe AZ could be there with her. I don't know. I mean, that's probably. I honestly have nothing else to add, because I feel like she's the only character that would have enough, I guess, cachet to move forward with the live action characters. I mean, we all know the Bad Batch will eventually start aging and dying off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you don't see them the time of Rebels with Rex. Like, they're so important to Rex. Like, why wouldn't Rex have them on the missions? They got to be dead by the time Rebels is around. There's no other way about it. They're like, why else explain where they're going to be? So there you go. But thanks to everybody that sent in the questions. That's awesome. So for next week, you guys can do the same. Maybe send in Bad Batch specific questions so we can kind of keep it themed around season 1 as a whole, because we're going to be basically talking all about season 1 as a whole next week. And just to kind of let you guys know, sometimes we can be a little bit of negative on things, but we're really saying it from our hearts. Like, we want this stuff to be amazing. We want this stuff to be incredible. This is Star Wars. We have a high bar for this stuff, right? This is not just normal TV we're talking about freaking Star Wars, which is what we're here to do. We're huge Star Wars fans, and I think it's fine for us to be critical. It's fine for us to want more of things from time to time, and we might come off maybe sometimes it's like, oh, these guys are the Bad Batch rants again, but we've talked plenty about good episodes as well earlier in the season, like that premiere. I don't think we've had anything bad to say about the premiere. Is awesome.
Yep.
But
awesome.
And then some of those other episodes that Ben mentioned, rattling off some of the best episodes you should have watched. Definitely very positive about that, but we'll say how it is when we don't like things. So don't be discouraged if you guys think we're hating on Bad Batch. We'll have plenty of nice things to say about it next week for sure. Talking about
let's be real here. We're going to come back and watch season 2. So, I mean, look, again, I can say everything I want negative about Star Wars, whatever property that I like. I'm going to come back and watch it because that's who I am. So it's just like I said, we love the property so much, and I think that I think we do a really good job at trying to be critical, but also give a tangible reason why. It ain't just because we're upset about it. That I think that's where the fandom sometimes gets too far. They just ran on and just said stupid stuff instead of actually saying, like, this is the reason why I'm seeing this. This is for examples I'm seeing from different shows or different storytellers. So it's good to bring in an educated thought when you disagree about something. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Like, I think the big part about this as well is, anybody, whether it be us or, any of the viewers or listeners, also keep in mind, share your opinions with people, but also, you don't apologize for your opinions. Like, respect other people's opinions and things, but you need to have your own opinions. Like, don't form your opinions based on what, like, the cool kids say, basically. Like, form your own opinions. Like you guys both said, we've had some negative viewpoints in this show. We've had some really awesome moments in this show. But then again, like our one viewer said earlier, the Gonzo, like he said, he loved the Infested episode, and we surely didn't feel the same. But that's awesome that he felt that way. And just because we aren't fans of that doesn't mean he shouldn't be fans or other people shouldn't be. Like maybe the season premiere, maybe people didn't like it because it was playing it safe, basically doing Order 66, like what we expected. Like maybe people don't like it for that reason, like and then that's their opinion and that's cool. But yeah, I think a lot of people you just gotta stick with your opinions, and but as you said, Milton, you just need to versus like arguing with people, like be like, hey, this is why I like it, this is why I don't like it. Like give your reasoning why, not just like, oh, it's bad or oh, it's good. Like give your reasoning, and boom, there you go. Like you have really good talking points, and and as you said as well, we're going to be right back here next year on whenever the Bad Batch comes out. We're going to be here talking season 2, like, and we're going to be talking all the speculation leading up to it and everything else. Like we'll be right back in that spot. Like I view it this way. So this season, if as we know, some of us here are sports fans. Like I view this as like a 7-9 season in the NFL. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's right in the middle of the pack. Like it's solid. It's okay. We got some good some middle ground draft picks, and I think we have some good potential. Like moving forward, 7-9, we can improve to like 13-3 or something. Like I
wouldn't go that far because you're a Cleveland Browns fan, aren't you?
That's true. Hey, we went from 1-0-16 to 11-5, but
I'll give you credit.
But I think I think we could go from maybe like 7-9 to like 11-5 or 12-4, something like that. Like we could definitely have a good season coming up. And I think there's good potential for it because these plot threads are good potential. Like these plot threads are our high draft picks. Like, you have the potential cloning storyline. You have some of the Crosshair stuff. You have Boba Fett. Like they name drop Boba Fett so many times. If we don't see him in season 2, I already have issues with that season. Gotcha. But I think there's a lot of good potential points for this coming season. It's all about execution. Right. And we'll address that here, obviously next week in next week's show.
So pretty much, Chris, before we wrap it up, Ben is saying that he hopes Boba Fett becomes Baker Mayfield. Okay.
Yep.
That's what he's saying. Yep. That's the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. Just saying. Yep. Boba Fett is Baker Mayfield. So that's all we need to know.
Well, guys, another great discussion, as always, here on Outer Rim Transmission. For those of you that are looking for content on this here YouTube channel, youtube.com/Starrapter for all the listeners out there, I have my review for The Suicide Squad, and I absolutely love that movie, so I highly recommend going out and seeing it. But do go check out the review. I have it on the website here on the youtube.com, the website. What am I saying anymore? Besides that, where can they find you guys? What are you talking about on Twitter recently? I know you're talking about Madden. What are you talking about, Milton?
Well, I'm on Milton Weber 7 on Twitter. Actually, I think I was talking about hockey today with my buddy Bo. We're talking about Jaromir Jagr still playing hockey at the age of 50. What? So follow me on Twitter at Milton Weber 7. I just retweet or talk about sports, movies, Star Wars, whatever I'm feeling up to. So follow me on Twitter. Let's have a discussion.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. And for me, you can find me at Real Ben Maynard. And, as Chris said, for me, it's the start of Madden season. So there's a lot of Madden getting played. And, of course, tons of Star Wars things I talk about. So my Twitter is pretty much Star Wars and football, and especially Madden. That's what I talk about. And also, I'm going to be just playing Jedi Fallen Order after this show tonight. I'm probably going to be up a few hours and get started on that game and have a good time with that. And also another little thing for anybody still watching or listening, don't forget to use hashtag Outer Rim Transmission on Twitter when you're submitting your questions for the show. And don't forget to send them in via email if you would like to do it that way. Just outerrimtransmission@gmail.com.
There you go, guys. It's that simple. We'll be back as we always are next week, Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern, and downloads are available every Monday after. So that's going to do it for me, for Milton, and for Ben. Thanks, everybody, for watching. This was Outer Rim Transmission number 20 in transmission.